Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us for Spotlight on Senior Issues. This series of programs is looking at topics of interest to senior citizens, but also perhaps family members who may have parents or grandparents who are senior citizens. And we're covering a variety of topics. Today we're focusing on an aspect of how others are reaching out to help seniors through hospice care and volunteering. I'd like to start off by introducing my guest, Teresa Sievers with Hospice, and Kelly, who is kind of a co-host guest today, I guess. We've been on the program. We'll continue to be on the program together. But Teresa, perhaps we need to start off when people use the term hospice care. Kind of define that for us.
Well, hospice is a service that is provided through someone's Medicare and Medicaid and some private insurance benefits. It is for patients who have a life-limiting illness, and we are there to provide support to the patient and the family during the end of their life, and provide comfort care, and we send nurses and nurses' aides to the patient's home to take care of physical needs. We have social workers and chaplains available to deal with the patient and family's spiritual and emotional needs.
So you really have a team of people working with the patients and their families.
We sure do. It's an interdisciplinary team.
Now, Kelly, you work, I know, as a senior advisor. You probably work a lot with hospice and people who want to have research and find out about
Absolutely. Hospices are one of our largest care partners, and I love the work that Hospice Compasses does and hospice workers do. It's a very specialized field and one that is real critical during certain parts of end of life especially.
What type of people might be wondering, well, what kind of medical conditions might lead up to hospice care?
Well, these are patients who maybe have just had a general decline in the last few months. You know, hospice can be a very scary term, but that's what we're there for, is to try to make it not so scary and to take that fear from patients and family who are facing this. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a death sentence. We just want to be there to provide that care and that comfort, and you know, support them throughout the journey. So someone who maybe has had some hospitalizations, maybe had some recent falls, or you know, something like that, that maybe just a general decline, and thinking that maybe they just need some extra help. Being a caregiver around the clock 24 hours a day is a hard job, and if we can take some of that burden and relief from a caregiver and lend them a hand, then that's what we want to be there for.
So you encounter this a lot when you're working with clients and families and stuff.
Absolutely.
And they have questions, well, when do I call hospice? When do we get involved?
And as a private duty care company, I try as a nurse especially to make sure that I'm even looking at my clients for signs that they're starting to get ready and need hospice care, because the interdisciplinary team that helps the families and the clients is just invaluable. So partnering together, in my opinion, gives these clients and their families really the best of both worlds when it comes to a bad situation that you're going to have to walk through. It's good to walk through it when you're able to hold on to people's hands.
And Teresa, you used the term death sentence. You know, a lot of people may hear the term hospice, like, oh, I have hospice, it means that's bad and it's over. You know?
Right, and a lot of people think that, you know, having hospice means, you know, the last few days.
That's it, yeah.
But many of our patients live several months, sometimes a year or two. As long as they continue to meet that Medicare criteria to stay on our service, we can keep them on. So it doesn't mean that, you know, once we go in there that, you know, it's just a matter of days or weeks.
Days or calendars.
Yeah, it can be much longer than that.
In my experience, one of the things I've seen more than any time is that you all are brought on too late.
Yes.
You just don't even have enough time to really do the things that you could provide for the families, which I think is really sad when I see that.
It is. That's the unfortunate part, is those late referrals, and then they don't have an opportunity to reap the benefits because we provide medications and durable medical equipment, hospital beds, and those things, and they don't have the opportunity to reap the benefits if we only have them just a few days. So we do what we can in that few days, but it's important to get them early and be able to care for them and their family.
So would you say in both of your positions that you encourage families to talk with their older relatives that, consider this before it gets too late, or, let's talk about it early?
And, it never hurts anything to have, I do it at times, have the hospice care consultant come out and assess a client to see if they meet the criteria, talk to the client's physician and see if they meet the criteria rather than waiting until it's later. And the other thing I see too is when there's a longer relationship, the clients and their families are able to build a relationship with the chaplain and have that trust. They build the relationship with the social worker and have established some trust, and also with the nurses. And so it's not a foreigner coming in and being involved at a very delicate time of life. It's actually somebody who's now a family friend. It's a trusted confidant that's able to be in the home during that difficult time when a lot of people are very private, and so that makes the whole journey a little bit easier.
Yes.
So your team that we're talking about consists of obviously the paid nurses, the people who are doing this, but then you have the volunteer aspect. And so today we're focusing on volunteers. People say, well, what can volunteers be doing in a hospice situation?
Right. Well, probably the number one thing that is requested from patients and families for volunteers to do is to provide that caregiver relief. The patient can no longer stay at home alone, and they just need someone to come into the home and sit with the patient for, say, 2 or 3 hours at a time while the caregiver goes in, runs some errands, pays bills, gets groceries, or maybe just goes to McDonald's, sit down and have a Coke and just get some time away. But then they don't have to worry about rushing home because they've got someone there that can sit with them. So volunteers do a lot of that, but it also is simple things just like making a delivery. The patient just needs some supplies delivered to their home, and so the volunteer can come by the office, pick those up, and take them by the patient's home. We utilize volunteers to provide visits to nursing home patients. Maybe we got somebody that's just a little bit lonely and enjoys extra visitors, and so we send volunteers to do those things. But we also have volunteers in the office. Maybe there's someone who wants to do a little something extra, has some extra time to give, but don't really want to visit patients or sit at the bedside.
Family or something.
Right, but they want to give back in some way, and so we can utilize them in the office, helping with mailings or filing or computer work, just whatever their interests might be.
So a lot of roles when we're talking about volunteering, people giving their time to help others.
Absolutely.
Teresa, how do you become a volunteer? Are there some specific steps that you have to take to become a volunteer? Well,
Medicare requires that all volunteers go through a training. So, and we have different ways that we do that. Sometimes we do like a 6-hour class that a volunteer can do, or if they don't have the time to do that, people are so busy these days that they just don't have that much free time to sit in a training class. But we do some one-on-one training. We have some DVDs that we can loan out that people can do on their own time. And once they get through that training, then we do some paperwork, a background check, and get them started on being a volunteer.
What type of qualities are you looking for in people as volunteers? I mean, are there certain qualifications you're looking for? Somebody says, well, do I fit what they're looking for?
Well, we're mostly looking for people who just have a little bit of extra time to give. A lot of people, the reason that they tell me they can't volunteer is that they're so busy, and I totally understand that. But to be a volunteer, if someone just has an hour a month or an hour a week, whatever they have that they can give is totally acceptable. We use the volunteers on their schedule. So if someone works 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but they have a little bit of time an evening here or there or on a weekend that maybe they could slip in a visit to a patient or something, then certainly that is acceptable. We want anyone who just wants to give back a little bit and has a little bit of extra time.
I imagine your volunteers have to like working with people, that you had personality.
That is helpful.
Right. So somebody who can relate. being a good listener? I mean, what those types of things are you looking
Yes.
for people?
Yes, absolutely. Being a good listener is really key, because all patients have a story to tell, and they a lot of times just want people to come and listen to their stories and listen to their military war stories, listen to them about their families or whatever it might be. But you know, just anything like that, just give a little bit of time. It means the world to these people. It really does.
Well, you mentioned people lonely, like in a nursing home setting. I imagine you'd be lonely even in your own home if people were
Absolutely,
isolated
yes.
that way.
Absolutely, you sure can. And it's always nice to just have a different face. You know, they see their family a lot, but just to see a different face every now and then is helpful. So, yeah, it can mean a lot to them.
Well, and the interesting thing is sometimes patients are trying to be strong for their families, and they know they're already loaded down quite a bit. I've seen this, and they're actually able to confide in a volunteer or a hospice social worker that comes along and tell them things, and some of the hard things that they wouldn't necessarily share all the times with their family members, but they need to get off their chest. But they're trying to be strong for their family, so it's nice for them to have an outside person that is coming in. And the other thing is, I wanted to kind of make a distinction just so our listeners could understand. They don't have to have formal, like, home health care training, medical training to be a volunteer. The volunteers that come in from hospice, they sit with clients, they do general activities that anybody can do, that we're all used to doing, but when it comes to actual hands-on patient care, that is reserved for the paid and trained caregivers. So that shouldn't scare anybody away from doing hospice volunteering.
Absolutely, yes. They are not required to do any transferring of lifting of patients or do any hands-on personal care. Basically, they're just there to be a friend and a listening ear.
Socialization being an important aspect.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, you hear a lot about today, the way that our society is set up. A lot of times family may not be close at hand. So are you finding that this helps when maybe the extended family's not there? They give them that other aspect of a friend or socialization.
Absolutely, fills that gap in. Sure does.
Working all of that together. So the backgrounds you're looking, what about people watching? What about age? I mean, what age can someone become a volunteer? Is there an ideal age group you look for volunteers?
Well, we take volunteers at any age. If they're under 18, they have to be supervised by their parent. Their parent basically would be the volunteer, and then they would kind of go on those
Accompany
visits.
them with the visit.
Right. But after the age of 18, then we can do background checks, and so they can be officially a volunteer at that age. So we get a lot of high schoolers or college students, especially college students who are entering into the medical field. It gives them, a little bit of good experience.
See what it's like.
Absolutely. And then we have those middle-aged working folks that just enjoy people and want to, give back to their community. And then we have the retired age group, and that's always a fun, great age to get involved. These people, have left their careers, but now are looking for something to do to give back and to get involved in the community. And this is a great resource for that age group as well.
So we're not only talking about in terms of senior issues as far as helping people in need, it's maybe giving the senior volunteers a way that they can give back to the community.
Yes, and many of the volunteers tell me that they get much more in return than the patient does. So, I think it helps the volunteer as much or more as it does the patient or family member.
And tying that together. Well, I know you have some pictures, and we're able to show some pictures and kind of help us visualize some of the things. You're talking about people visiting the patient in the home, but these pictures take us outside the home sometimes in some of those situations and so forth.
It does.
So if we can call up, it looks like the first one we're here of a wedding picture. So
okay, well, part of our volunteer program is we have a dream team that's made up of some of our staff and volunteers. That we have a patient who just has a last wish, that's something that they've always wanted to do but have never gotten to accomplish. And so we have this team of staff and volunteers that try to make those things come true. And in this particular case, this gentleman was our patient, and when he was asked, what would you like to do? before the time comes, and he looked at his girlfriend of 17 years and said, I want to marry her. And so we, in just a short 7 days, we put together a wedding, was able to get her beautiful gown donated. All of the decorations were donated by volunteers. We had volunteers making cakes, and we provided a limo and a hotel, and
the whole shebang.
Yeah, we did a whole
wedding you always dreamed of.
in a short week, and we had beautiful photos that she could cherish, and so that was a real
aspect of going beyond, above and beyond.
Yes.
Another picture looks like someone's enjoying the outdoors here.
Yes, this gentleman on the right was our patient, and he had told our social worker that he had a lot of childhood memories of fishing with his brother when they were kids, and he had some stories to tell. And the gentleman on the right, who was the brother, lived in another state, so we were able to provide a plane ticket for him to come here, and the two of them took their boat out and just had the best time fishing. And then we flew him back home, and it was a great time. And this gentleman, he was one of our nursing home patients, and we asked him what he wanted, what his dream might be, and he just said he wanted a T-bone steak one more time.
So there's that meal.
So we were able to get a T-bone dinner donated by a local steakhouse, and he had a good time eating
So you
that.
have all wide range of wishes and what people would like to have.
We do, and this is one of the first dreams that we did. This gentleman, he said that him and his wife used to attend a lot of movies, and he was a big Tom Cruise fan, and he wanted to see the latest Tom Cruise movie at that time, and so we provided movie tickets and free popcorn and drinks for the two of them to go on a movie date, and she is now a volunteer for us.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Do you see that a lot, where families will then give back to the program after they've been helped by the program?
We sure do. We get a lot of family members who was touched by our program, had a great experience, and now they want to give back to someone else who might be in a similar situation. And so we do tend to train a lot of family members to be volunteers, and they make good ones.
Well, tell me about the feedback you receive from family members when the end, does come. The kind of feelings they share with you then after that ultimate,
Well, yes, a lot of them just can't put into words. We get cards in our mailbox almost every day from family members who just can't express enough thanks of, what the team meant to them, and, how now they miss that nurse that become their close family friend, part of their family, and that social worker and that chaplain or that volunteer, they just can't express enough thanks. And as we had spoken before, that sometimes we don't get people till it's so close to the end. Many of our cards and surveys reflect that family members will then say, I wish I'd have known about you sooner, or I wish we'd have made this decision sooner. And so that is very enlightening, but it is a great program that can help in so many ways.
Do you feel that sometimes people are hesitant to make that decision sooner just because it's kind of facing the reality that we are facing this end?
Right, and for a lot of people, sometimes it even seems like they're giving up.
Right, and they don't necessarily want to.
They don't want to admit that we have this situation.
Right, and we just want them to know that it's not giving up, it's not throwing in the towel or whatever. It's more of just accepting more help and allowing us to take that some of that heavy load from you and let us share that with you, and be able to give you guys the quality time that you deserve as a family and that you need, and let us worry about all the other stuff. You guys just be a family.
Now, Kelly, we've talked on other programs about the importance of the caregiver needing respite or assistance.
Right, because so many of the caregivers will actually give out before the person they're caring for. And especially in a hospice situation, I tell family members all the time that what you're doing and trying to do by yourself with a bedbound patient who's perhaps a hospice patient, I would hire 6 people around to work around the clock to do what you're doing. And they don't even realize that. They feel bound and determined and sometimes guilty, feel like, I'm their wife, it's my, or I'm their husband, I need to be doing
my
this.
family, I'll take care of it.
My family, I'll take care of it. But when they realize the load of what they're trying to do and then realize that there are resources available, and I think that's really the key too, is seeing hospice as a resource. Versus, I've got to go on hospice and
it's just another step of the phases we're going through. Yeah.
It's a resource just like a hospital is a resource, but it's a resource to help you be able to, in most cases, stay at home where most people want to be during their end of life. And so I really, for myself, it's a great resource because if I want to stay home and I want to have people to support me, I don't have to be in the hospital to do that.
Right.
I can actually have a doctor come and see me at home. I can have a nurse come and see me at home. I can have a volunteer come over so that I can go to the grocery store, and I can have a social worker in the home. It's really home care at its best without having to make a gazillion trips to the emergency room where every time you go, you have to get out in the weather and
different doctors there. Yeah.
Different doctors that don't know you and they're poking and they're prodding and they may want to run a gazillion tests again on you. So one of the things that hospice does is help people be able to stay home if they're in pain, manage that pain without having to make all these trips to the hospital.
And then you coordinate then with the primary physician, whoever's working with that patient.
We do. And one consolation for a patient or a family member is that we do have a 24-hour call team.
Yes.
We have nurses on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that if they do get into crisis at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, they don't have to call 911 or go to the emergency room in the middle of the night. They can simply call our number. Our nurse can go out in the middle of the night or on the weekend and take care of whatever need is at hand and keep that patient right there at home and keep them comfortable, and then we don't have all of the, getting out and
the stress of the other things you have to go through.
Exactly. So that can be a great help for someone as well.
Teresa, I heard the other day about Angel Watch.
Yes.
And I wanted you to talk a little bit about Angel Watch because I just thought that was the neatest thing. So could you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. ANGELS actually stands for Alliance of Neighbors Giving End-of-Life Support. And that's the acronym. But it is a team of volunteers who have gone through an extra bit of training. And this is for our patients who, in our nurse's best estimation, she believes that if things continue to go as they're going, that in all likelihood the patient may not be with us in 24 to 48 hours. So this patient is there nearing the end, and these patients also do not have any family or very little family or community support. And we'll send the volunteers, we coordinate a schedule, and they usually take like a 4-hour shift, and they'll go and they'll just simply sit with the patient, read to them, even if the patient is unresponsive, hold their hand or whatever it might be, just to be a presence, because our one goal in this program is that no patient would die alone. Absolutely. And we feel it's very important that our patients have someone with them when that time comes. And so we provide our great volunteers who sometimes spend the night with the patient to make sure that that patient has someone with them at that time. And that can also be helpful for family members who may live quite a ways away and can't get here, or maybe they just need to go home and rest for the night, and they would like someone to be with their loved one. And so we can send the angels in through the night to sit with them and be with them.
I just think that's such a neat program.
So a volunteer who's really giving a special aspect and helping people out that way.
Absolutely.
Them and their families as well.
Yeah, that's just an extra dedication for the volunteers. So,
well, as we're talking, people have tuned in. They say we're talking about volunteering. How do they find out more information? Where do they go to say, I'm interested in being a volunteer?
Well, they can always call my office and get a hold of me there. We also have a website. There is a link on the website where they can just send a message that they're interested in being a volunteer. They can email me, so just any way that's convenient for someone. So.
Well, I think we have the website up right now, so that kind of lets people can recognize what you have. And
Yes.
you know, through that website, it looks like there are a lot of other links they can go to and find out more information.
There is. It's full of information, volunteer stories, and a lot of general information about hospice services, you know, in general.
Now, of course, we're recording this program, Joplin. People might be watching outside the Joplin area broadcast-wise. Hospice is something that's not unique to cities like Joplin. It's throughout the country, throughout the region.
It is. It is. It's a federal program, and locally here, we Hospice Compassus has an office in Joplin, but also in Lamar and Pittsburgh. So we service this entire area.
The region and what we have. And so volunteers, wherever they're watching, could also get involved in their community if they're not in Joplin.
Absolutely. That is very correct.
I'm tying that together. Well, as we're trying to provide information and resources, I mentioned, you know, as we say, this is an aspect a lot of people may not consider giving their time to help others through hospice.
Right. And I just was thinking, since we're sitting right on the campus of MSSU, it would be really amazing if a lot of MSSU students, like nursing program students, would actually be calling Teresa at the office and volunteering, because it would be unbelievable life experience for them.
Thanks for that resume.
Absolutely. But giving back, an amazing opportunity.
You mentioned social work. I mean, just people who might be social work majors
Yes.
and those types of areas where they're going to be working with
Nurses,
people.
CNAs, doctors, anybody that's wanting to work with people.
Yeah.
Lawyers even.
we have a volunteer who is an attorney and helps us with end of life documents.
There you go.
So it can be anybody.
A lot of different skills you can use as a volunteer.
right.
And you mentioned people, you know, sharing stories. I know some of your volunteers might even just say listening to those stories, capture them for the family to have then.
Yes, we have our volunteers do some life review. You know, if you get, I always tell volunteers, if you get that patient who is very talkative and wants to tell a lot of stories, we have a packet at the office that I give to them that has lots of leading questions if they don't know what to ask. You know, things about their elementary school all the way up to maybe their military time, and document all of that, even videotape it if the patient so desired, and let that patient leave the legacy for their children. And you know, a lot of times kids just don't think about asking mom or dad those questions, and so we try to intervene and help in that aspect as well.
Imagine that would be even a special gift for that family, that they may not have told, mom and dad may not have told the children those stories, but they have those reserved.
Well, and the kids are busy, and some of them are living in, you know, distant states, and they've got grandkids that may come to see grandma and grandpa once a year, if that.
Right.
And just the legacy of the stories. I think sometimes I feel like we're losing some of the past history, the family histories.
Right. Our society's
So
changing.
this is
People
a-
aren't writing those
Right.
diaries. They're not, you know,
Right.
preserving
You can't go read grandma's diary much anymore, and so I think preserving that, and even I need to think about doing that myself, even as I go along, so that I remember stuff.
Right. Well, those memories are part of people's heritage, and they're going to share those with future generations. So, any final thoughts you'd like to, someone's watching, you'd like to say to them about your need for volunteers? Is it something that you always have a need?
We always do. You can never have too many volunteers. And I just want to stress that if someone's out there thinking, this sounds really great, it sounds like something I'd really like to do, but gosh, I don't know where I'd fit it in at, give me a call, we'll figure out something. I always tell volunteers, I'll work with your schedule. Sometimes a volunteer may not do something but once every 6 months. It doesn't even have to be on a regular weekly basis or monthly basis. It's just, you know, an hour here, an hour there, or, you know, 15-minute delivery. You know, it all helps. And just whatever somebody can give, we can certainly put that to good use for our program.
Make a difference in someone's life.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being on the program today.
Thank you.
And thank you for helping out again, Kelly.
You're welcome.
With the program. And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us again for Spotlight on Senior Issues, as we continue to look at topics of interest concerning senior citizens and, of course, to their family members as well. I invite you to stay tuned as we have future programs continuing to look at senior issues and what it means for our community. I'll see you then.